Hello, nurse researchers. Woo! You have made it to the end. Well done, nurses, as we focus on a special type of research. The mixed method research is really the combo platter of quantitative and qualitative research studies, and they come together to really ensure that the results are complementary and practical, and it has enhanced validity. And through triangulation of methods, and you know what that is, it is powerful because it helps to interpret the data in context. Now, page 340 of your book does a great job detailing these purposes of the mixed method. So be sure to look at that because it also describes the designs. You're going to see these out there when you're critiquing studies, but we're just going to briefly mention them here. Now here's the skinny on the top 4 mixed method designs because they are either qualitative and quantitative. If they are collected, that data, at the same time, that is known as concurrent design. You're collecting both qualitative and quantitative data at the same time. If you are doing it differently, quantitative first, qualitative second, etc., then that is known as sequential. Don't you like that? Right, okay. The convergent parallel design is also known as the triangulation design, and it is a concurrent design with equal emphasis on both. That means that both qualitative and quantitative are equally emphasized. And I'll give you an example. In our breast health study, it was a qualitative design by the most part, and we had a very small quantitative feature. And so that would have been then more like the embedded design, where you have one type of data that is of more emphasis with support from the other. So you see we did the educational piece, which was qualitative, and then the clinical breast exam and the mammography as a good quantitative support. So just kind of know that in general, because really what we want to focus on has to do with those randomized clinical trials, because these are a part of special types of research and interventional research. Now here's the question. If you're looking at a clinical trial, is that quantitative or qualitative, do you think? You're right. For the most part, it is going to be a quantitative study design because randomized clinical trials are always experimental. And you're going to almost always find these used, certainly in drug testing, because you've got random samples. You've got that rigor and control and manipulation and clinical interventions and all kinds of things. So when you remember that the randomized clinical trials are at the top of the hierarchy of valid, usable research and interpretive research. So know that these are a very powerful type of research. Also know that there's this thing called evaluation research, and it's really more looking at processes and impact. A lot of hospital organizations may conduct evaluation research, and it's really a focus on program or policy, like rural home health and hospice or something of that nature. You're going to see nursing intervention research become a big fat hairy deal, and I hope you'll conduct some of this because it's really looking to develop research based on complex nursing interventions, and these are the 4 phases that are a part of that. Now these are really great also like for clinical trials. We might be looking at lifestyle choices for the preteen that is obese, and preteen adolescents, and dietary and exercise choices, and how to decrease the BMI by 50%. Goodness, that's an example of nursing intervention research. Dr. Fletcher has done such research here recently. Also, you're going to see health services and outcomes research. And this is really interdisciplinary research. Remember, that's going to be a focus for our future. And it focuses on certainly the organizational structure, but it includes social and personal factors that affect access and cost in healthcare. So this is a big deal in other types of research, using qualitative and quantitative features as well, because you're really wanting to examine the end result of patient care, the so what, decreasing mortality and morbidity as a part of that. And it also kind of, it does utilize evaluation research, looking at epidemiology and economic theory perspective. And it really serves as our foundation for evidence-based care, you know, why we do what we do. Isn't that cool? All right. Now, what I want you to do is lean in on this chapter 19. This is kind of our last hurrah. It's hard to believe, isn't it? We're going to talk about research integration and synthesis. Gosh, y'all know so much about research now. You know such terminology and the integration, and you're being able to dissect and think about the research that you're reading and maybe the research you want to do, because you see how powerful it is to influence lives and livelihoods. So, if you remember from Unit 1, we talked about research utilization, and that's really looking at the results of one study that concentrates on maybe one clinical problem. But evidence-based practice is that broader perspective, using multiple research studies, findings, and implementing into practice changes and guidelines and scopes. And so the best way to really go about doing this has to do with looking at systematic reviews. And systematic reviews are, remember, using multiple studies. And the way we do that, there are two forms of systematic reviews, and I want you to know these. These need to be a part of your central nervous system, because when you are writing your own research studies, you're going to want to pull these into your review of the literature. Or if you're going to make a policy change or a practice change, you're going to want to pull these in to look, because what these are powerful to do is they're giving you the evidence out there that is meaningful. Now, meta-analysis is going to be quantitative from the quantitative research literature. It is the statistical integration of results used from multiple studies. You're combining the results of several similar studies on a topic, and then you're going to take the statistical analysis of those multiple studies. And that's what makes it so powerful. Meta-analysis is quantitative. Metasynthesis is qualitative in background. You're looking at that theoretical integration and interpretation of those findings. The synthesis, or the integration of those qualitative research studies in a new theory or a new framework on a topic. And you really do want to use these a lot. They're powerful. So let's talk a little bit more about the first type of systematic review, which is the meta-analysis. And that is, what is it? Quantitative or qualitative? Quantitative studies are used. If you remember, from Unit 1, we talked about a meta-analysis conducted by Bainel and Hugh, which they looked at a review of the literature, and they found several trials, clinical trials, to estimate the effects of walnuts on blood lipids. And they looked at 13 studies that met the criteria. So they ultimately looked at 365 subjects. So you see how big and broad. So they're taking each of those research studies and they're actually conducting the same type of statistical analysis on each study's stats to make it a cumulative result. Isn't that cool? So that gives that meta-analysis increased power and it reduces that type 2 error. Remember about rejecting that null? Well, that increases the power and the precision. You know, when 13 studies say the same thing, it is a lot more powerful than just one study. Don't you like that? Okay, page 357 of your text really also takes you through the steps of the meta-analysis, and I'm not going to discuss those now. You'll be so happy. You can read about them because when you start doing them, you'll have a broader understanding of it. But just know that they are multiple studies. And the effect size indexes, what these are, it's a statistical calculation that examines the relationship between independent and dependent variables in each study used in the meta-analysis. For example, those 13 studies, well, there were 13 independent variables and 13 dependent variables, and those are put together in a statistical test. And you're thinking, golly, do we even use meta-analysis processes? Well, we do. And how many of you use care bundles? Yeah, like for urinary catheterization, ventilator management, care bundles, policies and procedures. Well, guess what? They came from meta-analysis. See how cool this is? You're using research. I love it. All right. Now, the second type of systematic review is the meta-synthesis from qualitative studies. And it's really the goal is to offer a novel interpretation of findings. New ways of thinking about phenomena. An example might be, remember we talked about Drucker and that qualitative metasynthesis looking at the essence of healing from sexual violence. Looked at 82 research articles, and the researchers had developed this 14-item tool as a reading guide. And they ultimately ended up with 55 studies. And out of those 55 studies, the research team extracted 1,897 statements reflecting healing from sexual violence. And out of that, almost 2,000 statements, they came up with 4 domains of healing. And they were identified as managing memories, relating relationships to important others, seeking safety, and reevaluation of self. So you see these 4 domains, then you take these metasynthesis and think, gee, as a therapist, as a nurse, I can help guide the clients through these 4 domains to meet and succeed and heal. Isn't that cool? Don't you love a metasynthesis too? See, they are very powerful as well. So, those are the ones I want you to know. And wow, can you believe it? You've made it to the end, the grand finale, the end of the lecture. Wanted to take an opportunity to say I'm just so excited that you have been a part of this journey. And I hope that you have learned, that you have a greater appreciation for the world of research. I look forward to you coming to graduate school and what you will do in your future as a nurse and what you do for the profession. I thank you for it now. So, the grand finale. You'll now be able to apply all of these thoughts and concepts to your comprehensive final exam, which you will then look at a research article, complete the study guide, and on the posted date you will take a test based on that research article as a critique. Wish you well, nurses. Get your nursing on, get your nursing research on, and see you soon.